Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin.
Rowan Calloway sat in the back of his Mercedes, watching city buildings blur past as his driver navigated through afternoon traffic. His fingers tapped against his briefcase. Inside lay contracts worth $8 million, the result of 3 grueling days of negotiations in Chicago. Not that the challenge bothered him. Rowan had built his empire from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar corporation through raw determination and ruthless business acumen. "Take the Parkway," he instructed his driver. "I want to get home before rush hour." The driver nodded, smoothly changing lanes. Rowan returned to reviewing emails on his phone, each message a testament to his success. New contracts, investment opportunities, meeting requests from industry leaders who once wouldn't give him the time of day. He'd earned every bit of it through decades of strategic planning and relentless work ethic. His phone buzzed with a text from Celeste. "Don't forget to transfer money for Alora's new car payment." Rowan's jaw tightened. The new car was their daughter's 3rd vehicle this year, a Mercedes G-Wagon to replace the BMW she'd grown tired of after just 4 months. He made the transfer without replying. The money meant nothing to him. But lately, something about these constant demands grated against his nerves. The Mercedes turned into their exclusive neighborhood, passing manicured lawns and sprawling mansions. Their Tudor-style home stood apart, its architectural details and perfectly maintained grounds a statement of wealth that Celeste had insisted upon. Every brick, every trimmed hedge, every polished window represented years of his hard work. "That will be all for today," Rowan told his driver as they pulled into the circular driveway. "Take tomorrow off." He grabbed his briefcase and climbed out, his Italian leather shoes crunching on the gravel. Success radiated from every detail. His tailored suit, his platinum watch, the very air of authority he carried. He'd given his family everything they could ever want. More than they deserved. A small voice whispered in his mind. Laughter drifted through the front door as he inserted his key. Female laughter, sharp, cutting, cruel. He recognized the voices instantly. Celeste, his wife of 20 years. Alora, their 18-year-old daughter. And Harlow Montgomery, Celeste's best friend and fellow social climber. Rowan paused in the foyer, his hand still on the doorknob. Something in their tone made him hesitate. He'd heard that particular laugh from Celeste before, the one she used when destroying someone's reputation at her charity galas. "I swear, it's like he doesn't even question it anymore." Celeste's voice rang out, followed by the distinct sound of wine being poured. "Just hands over his credit card like the good little ATM he is." More laughter erupted. Rowan remained perfectly still, his grip tightening on his briefcase. "Mom, remember when I told him I needed $5,000 for that charity fundraiser?" Alora's voice dripped with smug satisfaction. "It was actually for my spring break trip to Cabo. He didn't even ask to see the donation receipt." "That's because your father's too busy making money to notice anything else," Harlow chimed in. "Though I suppose that works out perfectly for you ladies, doesn't it?" "Please," Celeste snorted. "He's not even a real man. Just a convenient source of cash. Did you see how quickly he paid for my spa weekend last month?" "You mean your weekend with Everett?" Harlow asked, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. Rowan's blood turned to ice in his veins. His free hand curled into a fist, but his face remained impassive. "Everett's twice the man Rowan is," Celeste replied, her voice thick with wine and contempt. "He understands a woman's needs. And I don't just mean financially." "Mom," Alora exclaimed, but she was laughing. "Too much information." "Speaking of information," Harlow interjected, "how are you managing the money transfers? Won't Rowan notice?" "He never checks the secondary accounts," Celeste said dismissively. "Too busy building his precious company. Besides, what's he going to do? He's just an ATM, remember? That's all he's ever been." Rowan stepped silently into the doorway of the living room. None of them noticed him at first. Celeste sprawled across their imported Italian leather sofa, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the casual setting. She wore designer loungewear that cost more than most people's rent. Beside her, Harlow perched on the armchair, swirling red wine in a crystal glass. Alora sat cross-legged on the floor, twirling a set of car keys around her finger, his spare Mercedes keys. "Thanks for the ride, Aim," Alora smirked, jangling the keys. The room erupted in fresh peals of laughter. Celeste wiped tears of mirth from her eyes. "You're not a real man, Rowan. Just a walking ATM." The room fell silent as they finally registered his presence. For a moment, nobody moved. Rowan studied each of their faces, noting their reactions. Alora's smirk faltered slightly, but didn't disappear. Harlow had the decency to look somewhat uncomfortable, though she didn't set down her wine glass. But Celeste didn't even flinch. That a short laugh escaped Rowan's lips as understanding dawned. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a bad joke taken too far. This was routine. This was their true nature, finally revealed in all its ugly glory. That he nodded slowly, his sharp eyes taking in every detail of the scene. The empty wine bottles, the shopping bags from luxury boutiques scattered across the floor, the casual cruelty in their expressions. "Daddy," Alora called out, her voice syrupy sweet. "We didn't hear you come in. How was your trip?" "Successful," he replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "Very successful, darling," Celeste started, sitting up straighter but not bothering to hide her wine glass. "We were just having a little girl talk. You know how it is." "Do I?" Rowan's gaze swept the room again. "Tell me more about these charity fundraisers, Alora. I'm suddenly very interested in the details." Alora's smirk wavered. "Daddy, it was just a joke. Don't be so serious." "A joke," he repeated softly. "Like the spa weekend? Or the secondary accounts?" Color drained from Celeste's face, but she recovered quickly. "Rowan, you're being ridiculous. Come sit down, have some wine. You look tired from your trip." "No," he said simply. "I don't think I will." Without another word, he turned and walked away. Behind him, the laughter resumed, though slightly more subdued. "Daddy's mad," Alora sing-songed, followed by more giggling. "He'll get over it," Celeste's voice drifted after him. "He always does. That's what ATMs are for, right?" Rowan climbed the stairs to his home office, each step measured and deliberate. He closed the door quietly and sat down at his desk. For several minutes, he remained perfectly still, his mind working with cold precision. 20 years of marriage, 18 years of fatherhood, countless sacrifices, endless hours of work, all to provide the life they demanded. And this was how they saw him, not as a husband, not as a father, but as an ATM to be drained at their convenience. He opened his laptop and began typing. First, an email to James Sullivan, his personal lawyer. "Need meeting first thing tomorrow. Bring divorce papers and financial team." Next, a message to Michael Torres, his most trusted private investigator. Full background check on Everett Maddox. Priority status. Whatever it costs. Finally, he called his bank's private client service line. "This is Rowan Calloway. I need to freeze all secondary accounts immediately. Yes, I understand it's after hours. That's why I pay your premium service fees." He worked late into the night, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he gathered financial records, property deeds, investment portfolios. Everything he'd built, everything he'd earned. They thought it was all just a convenient resource to be exploited. They were about to learn how wrong they were. His phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Celeste. "Don't be childish. Come to bed. We need to talk about this. You're overreacting." He ignored them all, focusing on his work. The ATM they'd taken for granted was about to close permanently, and the withdrawal fees would be devastating. Dawn barely touched the horizon when Rowan arrived at his lawyer's office the next morning. James Sullivan was already waiting, silver hair immaculate despite the early hour. 3 cups of coffee and a stack of papers covered his desk. "You look like hell," Sullivan observed, pushing a coffee toward Rowan. "Skip the pleasantries," Rowan replied, setting his briefcase down. "What's my exposure?" Sullivan shuffled through his papers. Based on California's community property laws, she'd typically be entitled to half. But these transfers to secret accounts, especially if we can prove they went to her lover, that changes things. "I want everything locked down. Every account, every property, every asset." "Already started the process." Sullivan pulled out a document. "The judge signed emergency orders freezing the secondary accounts an hour ago." "But Rowan," You need to be smart about this. One wrong move, and I don't make wrong moves, Rowan cut in. That's why I pay you $3,000 an hour. Now, tell me about Everett Maddox. Sullivan slid a folder across the desk. Preliminary background check came in this morning. He's CEO of Maddox Industries, real estate development mainly. 3 divorces, each messier than the last. Likes to play the wealthy sophisticate at charity events. Where he met my wife. Exactly. Sullivan leaned forward. But here's the interesting part. His company's not doing well. Last 2 projects went belly up. He's leveraged to the hilt, trying to keep up appearances. A cold smile touched Rowan's lips. So he needs money, and your wife's been providing it. We've traced nearly $2 million in transfers over the past year. Rowan's fingers tightened on his coffee cup. From my accounts? Your joint accounts, Sullivan corrected. But given the circumstances, we can argue misappropriation of marital assets. That's why I called in Karen Mills from Forensic Accounting. She's waiting in the conference room. The next few hours passed in a blur of financial records and legal strategies. By noon, Rowan had signed enough papers to fill a banker's box. Every asset was being tracked, every transaction scrutinized. One more thing, Sullivan said as Rowan prepared to leave. We found something odd in Maddox's business records. Several of his development projects share investors with companies you've competed against. Rowan paused. Corporate espionage? Possibly. We're digging deeper. Good. Keep me updated. Rowan checked his phone, 20 missed calls from Celeste. Time to head home and watch the fireworks. The drive home gave him time to reflect. Signs he should have seen years ago now seemed obvious. The mysterious weekend trips. The sudden interest in charity events. The way Celeste's spending had escalated beyond even her usual excess. His phone rang. Michael Torres, the private investigator. Mr. Calloway, you're going to want to see this, Torres said without preamble. I'm sending photos now. Surveillance from the Ritz-Carlton last weekend. Rowan pulled into his driveway as the images loaded. Celeste and Everett Maddox entering the hotel. Intimate dinners. Shopping trips paid for with cards linked to Rowan's accounts. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Every image was a fresh betrayal. Every timestamp another nail in the coffin of his marriage. Inside the house, chaos reigned. Elora's voice echoed from upstairs, shrill with panic. What do you mean declined? Run it again. Celeste paced the living room, phone pressed to her ear. This is ridiculous. I'm Mrs. Rowan Calloway. The account cannot be frozen. Rowan walked past them both, heading for his office. Celeste spotted him and gave chase. What have you done? She demanded, following him up the stairs. Every card is declined. The accounts are locked. Fascinating, Rowan replied without turning around. Almost like someone closed the ATM. Stop saying that. Celeste grabbed his arm. I am your wife. Rowan turned slowly, his gaze dropping to her hand on his arm. She released him immediately, taking a step back. My wife, he said softly. Tell me, does my wife usually spend her weekends at the Ritz-Carlton with other men? Color drained from Celeste's face. You had me followed? No. I had my assets protected. You and Everett were just collateral surveillance. You don't understand, she started, but Rowan cut her off. I understand perfectly. $2 million in transfers. Secret accounts. Hotel rooms booked under false names. His voice remained calm, which seemed to unnerve her more than anger would have. Tell me, does Everett know you've been bankrupting his business? What? Those development projects you've been funding with my money? Shell companies. Failed investments. He's been bleeding you dry, and you've been too busy playing sophisticated mistress to notice. You're lying, Celeste whispered, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Check his business records. Oh wait, you can't. You don't have access anymore. Rowan smiled coldly. Neither does he, since the SEC just opened an investigation into his company. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Celeste. I'm simply showing you what happens when an ATM fights back. Elora appeared in the doorway. Mascara streaked down her face. Daddy, my card was declined at Neiman Marcus. I was in the middle of buying my homecoming dress. How tragic, Rowan replied, turning to his computer. Perhaps you can ask one of your real parents to buy it for you. The ATM is out of service. This isn't fair. Elora has stomped her foot. You can't just cut us off. Fair. Rowan's fingers paused on the keyboard. Was it fair when you lied about charity donations to fund your spring break debauchery? Was it fair when you and your mother mocked me in my own home? We were just joking, Elora protested weakly. Then consider this the punchline. He turned back to his work. By the way, the G-Wagon has been reported stolen. Police should be here soon to recover it. Stolen? You gave me those keys. No, I gave those keys to my daughter. The one who respected me as a father, not an ATM. Since she doesn't exist, the car was clearly stolen. Celeste grabbed Elora's arm. Come on, honey. Your father clearly needs time to get over whatever midlife crisis this is. She shot Rowan a venomous look. We'll discuss this later when you're thinking rationally. There's nothing to discuss, Rowan replied without looking up. But feel free to take it up with my lawyers. I'm sure they'll be fascinated by your explanation of where all that money went. After they left, Rowan opened his email. New messages from Sullivan detailed the progress of their legal strategy. The forensic accountants had already uncovered 3 more hidden accounts. The SEC investigation into Maddox Industries was proceeding faster than expected. Aided by anonymous tips from Rowan's team, his phone buzzed with a text from Torres. Found something interesting about Maddox's connection to your competitors. Call when you can. Perfect. Every piece was falling into place that a notification popped up on his screen. A message from Harlow Montgomery to her social circle. News of the family drama was already spreading. Within hours, Celeste's carefully crafted image would begin to crumble. He opened his safe and removed several files he'd been gathering for years. Bank statements, credit card receipts, surveillance photos, evidence he'd hoped never to use, but had kept just in case. The habits of a careful businessman. Now serving a different kind of corporate takeover, his phone rang Everett Maddox's name on the screen. Rowan let it go to voicemail. Let him sweat. Let him wonder what was coming next. The man who thought he could steal another man's wife was about to learn an expensive lesson about karma. Rowan stood and straightened his tie, preparing for his next meeting. The women who'd treated him like a cash machine were about to learn the true cost of their actions. And Everett Maddox, who thought he could build his failing empire with stolen money, would soon discover the price of underestimating Rowan Calloway. The ATM was closed. And this was just the beginning. The next morning brought chaos to the Calloway mansion. Rowan sat in his study, reviewing emails while listening to the commotion downstairs. Celeste's voice carried through the house as she argued with various credit card companies and bank representatives. This must be a mistake, she insisted into her phone. I've been a platinum member for 15 years. Rowan smiled slightly as he opened another email from Sullivan. The forensic accounting team had made several interesting discoveries overnight. Not only had Celeste been transferring money to Everett, but she'd also been setting up trust accounts in Elora's name. Accounts that conveniently listed her as the sole trustee. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Calloway, his security chief's voice came through. Mrs. Montgomery is at the gate insisting on entry. Let her in, Rowan replied. This should be interesting. Minutes later, Harlow Montgomery burst into his study, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed around the edges. What are you doing to them? She demanded without preamble. Rowan looked up calmly. Good morning, Harlow. I trust you've been enjoying the entertainment. Entertainment? Celeste is devastated. And poor Elora. Poor Elora. Rowan cut in. Just had her 3rd luxury car this year reported as stolen. Tragic, isn't it? This is cruel. Even for you. Cruel? Rowan stood slowly, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. Was it cruel when you sat in my home, drinking my wine, while my wife and daughter mocked me? Was it cruel when you helped Celeste hide her affair with Everett Maddox? Harlow's face paled. I never. Don't. Rowan held up a hand. The text messages have already been recovered. Every lunch date you arranged. Every alibi you provided. Every time you played lookout while my wife met her lover. Those messages were private. Nothing paid for with my money is private anymore. He sat back down, dismissing her with his posture. Now, unless you'd like your husband to learn about your own interesting financial arrangements, I suggest you leave. Harlow backed away, her hands shaking. You're going to regret this, Rowan. No, Harlow. You're all going to regret underestimating me. After she left, Rowan pulled up the surveillance photos Torres had sent. Image after image of Celeste and Everett together, each one meticulously dated and time-stamped. The expensive restaurants, the luxury hotels, the intimate moments they thought were private, all paid for with Rowan's money. His phone rang. Torres again. "Mr. Calloway, we've confirmed the corporate espionage angle," the investigator reported. "Maddox has been using his meetings with your wife to gather information about your company's acquisitions and investments. Evidence? Rock solid. We found encrypted emails between Maddox and your competitors. He's been selling them information about your business moves for months." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Send everything to Sullivan. And Torres? Keep digging. I want every secret, every weakness, every vulnerability. Already on it. By the way, Mrs. Calloway, just tried to access the offshore accounts you asked me to monitor. And? Denied, of course. But she's getting desperate. Made 3 attempts in the last hour." "Good." Rowan ended the call and turned to his computer that a new email caught his attention from Alora's private school. Her tuition payment had been declined. Her enrollment for the upcoming semester was now in jeopardy. Right on cue, Alora appeared in his doorway. Gone was the entitled smirk, replaced by genuine fear. "Daddy, please," she began, tears in her eyes. "The school called. They're going to drop me if the tuition isn't paid by Friday." "How unfortunate," Rowan replied without looking up. "Perhaps you can explain to them how you spent their last tuition payment on your Cabo vacation. That was different. This is my future we're talking about." Now Rowan did look up. "Your future? Tell me, Alora, what exactly are your plans for this future? More lies? More manipulation? More treating people like walking ATMs?" "I said I was sorry." "No," Rowan corrected her. "You said you were joking. There's a difference." "Fine. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Is that what you want to hear?" "What I want," Rowan said quietly, "is my daughter back. The one I thought I was raising to be a decent human being. But that daughter never existed. Did she?" Alora's face crumpled. "Daddy, please. I'll do anything. Anything except earn your own way." He turned back to his work. "The ATM is closed, Alora. Time to learn what that means." She fled from the room in tears. Moments later, Celeste stormed in. "Are you happy now?" she demanded. "Destroying your own daughter's future?" "Our daughter," Rowan replied calmly, "destroyed her own future when she decided to follow your example." "My example? I've done nothing but try to give her the best life possible. By teaching her to lie, to manipulate, to treat her father like a convenient source of cash." Rowan's voice remained steady, but his eyes blazed. "Tell me, Celeste, what else have you taught her? How to hide affairs? How to steal from her future husband? Don't you dare judge me. You were never there." "I was always there," Rowan countered. "Working, building, providing everything you demanded. And how did you repay that? By spreading your legs forever at Maddox." The slap echoed through the room. Rowan caught her wrist before she could strike again. "That," he said softly, "will never happen again." Celeste yanked her hand free. "You're a monster." "No, I'm a businessman. And you've become a liability." He released her wrist. "Now get out of my office. My lawyers will be in touch about the divorce proceedings." "Divorce?" Celeste laughed harshly. "You think I'll let you divorce me? I'll take everything you have." "You can try." Rowan smiled coldly. "But remember, Celeste, I have the receipts. Every hotel room, every secret account, every transfer to your lover. How do you think that will play in divorce court? You wouldn't dare expose me like that." "Why not? You've spent years exposing me as nothing but an ATM. Time for some reciprocal exposure." His phone buzzed another message from Sullivan. The SEC investigation into Maddox Industries was moving faster than expected. Raids were being planned. Warrants were being issued. "You should call Everett," Rowan suggested. "I hear the SEC is very interested in his business practices, particularly his habit of using insider information to manipulate investments." All color drained from Celeste's face. "What did you do?" "I protected my interests. Something you and Everett should have considered before trying to play games with a man who builds and destroys companies for a living." "This isn't over." Celeste spat as she backed toward the door. You're right, Rowan agreed. This is just the beginning. The ATM isn't just closed, Celeste. It's about to self-destruct and take everything you care about with it. After she left, Rowan returned to his work. His phone continued to buzz with messages from Celeste, from Alora, from Harlow, from Everett. He ignored them all, let them panic. Let them scheme. Let them try to salvage what was left of their carefully constructed lies. The next phase of his plan was already in motion. The ATM they'd taken for granted wasn't just fighting back. It was about to teach them all a lesson in karma they'd never forget. The morning news played quietly on Rowan's office television as he reviewed the latest reports from his team. The business channel's ticker showed Maddox Industries stock in freefall, down 60% since the SEC investigation became public. His phone lit up with a text from Torres. "You need to see this immediately." Attached was a video file captured from security cameras at Maddox Industries. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon. Everett Maddox rushed through his office, stuffing documents into a briefcase. Behind him, men in suits, agents, entered the frame. Rowan watched with cold satisfaction as Maddox knocked over a potted plant in his haste to reach the private elevator. The agents moved with practiced efficiency, securing computers and files. One held up a warrant as Maddox jabbed frantically at the elevator button that a second text from Torres followed. FBI just issued a warrant for his arrest. Corporate espionage, securities fraud, wire fraud. They found the offshore accounts. Rowan typed back, "Keep monitoring. I want to know the moment they catch him." His office door burst open. Celeste stood there, face contorted with rage, holding her phone out like a weapon. "What have you done to Everett?" "I haven't done anything to Everett," Rowan replied calmly. The SEC and FBI, on the other hand, seemed very interested in his business practices. "This is your fault. You reported him." "No, Celeste. This is your fault. You chose to have an affair with a man who used you to spy on my company." Rowan turned his laptop around, showing her the evidence. "Every time you bragged about my business deals, every detail you shared over pillow talk, he sold that information to my competitors." "You're lying," she whispered, but her hand trembled as she stared at the screen. "The evidence is right here. Bank transfers tracking the money he made selling my company's secrets. Emails between him and my competitors. Phone records showing his calls to them minutes after meeting you." Rowan's voice remained steady. "He didn't love you, Celeste. He used you, just like you used me." "Stop it." She slammed her hands on his desk. "You're just jealous because he's twice the man you are." "Is he? Let's examine that." Rowan pulled up another document. "His company is bankrupt. The SEC is seizing his assets. The FBI wants him for fraud. And the money he spent on you," he smiled coldly, "all stolen from other investors. You weren't his mistress, Celeste. You were his unwitting accomplice." The color drained from her face as she read the evidence. Emails detailing Everett's schemes. Bank records showing the source of his wealth, all built on fraud and theft. "He wouldn't," she mumbled. "He loved me. He loved what you could give him access to my business dealings." Rowan stood, towering over her. "Congratulations, Celeste. You didn't just betray your husband. You helped a criminal steal from my company." She backed away, shaking her head. No, you're twisting things." "Am I?" "Call him. Ask him yourself." Rowan gestured to her phone. "Oh wait, you can't. He's probably halfway to a non-extradition country by now." A commotion erupted downstairs. Alora's voice raised in panic. Moments later, she rushed into the office. "Mom, the country club just canceled our membership, and Jessica's mother uninvited me from her graduation party." Celeste whirled toward Rowan. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," he replied. "But it seems your social circle has learned about your affair with a criminal. Harlow's been quite busy spreading the news." "Harlow would never." "Harlow already did." He held up his phone, showing her the text messages. "Amazing how quickly she turned on you once I showed her evidence of your involvement in Everett's crimes." "Crimes?" Alora's voice cracked. "Mom, what's he talking about?" "Nothing, honey," Celeste said quickly. "Your father's just being spiteful." "Tell her, Celeste," Rowan urged softly. "Tell her how you helped your lover steal millions from investors. Tell her why she might be questioned by the FBI about those trust accounts you set up in her name." "Trust accounts?" Elora turned to her mother. What trust accounts? It's not what you think. It's exactly what she thinks. Rowan pulled up more documents. Your mother used your name to hide money she was stealing from me and giving to Everett. Money he was using to run his Ponzi scheme. Elora backed away from both of them, tears streaming down her face. Is it true? Did you use my name for criminal stuff? I was protecting your future. Celeste protested. By making her an accessory to fraud? Rowan's voice cut through the room. Congratulations, Celeste. You've not only destroyed your own life, but potentially your daughter's as well. This is your fault. Celeste screamed at him. You've ruined everything. No, you ruined everything the moment you decided I was nothing but an 8. He sat back down at his desk. Now get out. Both of you. My lawyers will contact you about the divorce proceedings. Divorce? Elora's voice shook. Daddy, please save it, Elora. The time for pleading is over. He didn't look up from his work. The ATM is closed. Permanently. They left, Celeste practically dragging a sobbing Elora. Rowan waited until their footsteps faded before picking up his phone to call Sullivan. Everything's ready, his lawyer reported. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow. The SEC has frozen all of Maddox's assets, including the accounts connected to Celeste. And the FBI wants to interview her about her role in the fraud. Good. And the house? Deed's been transferred to your holding company. They'll receive the eviction notice next week. Rowan nodded, though Sullivan couldn't see it. Any word on Maddox? Border Patrol caught him trying to flee to Mexico an hour ago. He's in FBI custody now. Perfect. Rowan ended the call and leaned back in his chair. His phone buzzed again. Harlow Montgomery sharing the latest gossip with their social circle. Celeste's carefully constructed world was crumbling. No more charity galas. No more country club brunches. No more pretending to be the perfect family. The television caught his attention breaking news about Everett Maddox's arrest. The reporter detailed the charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, corporate espionage. The camera showed Maddox being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled, his confident smile replaced by fear. Another text from Torres. Mrs. Calloway just tried to access the emergency accounts. All denied. Rowan smiled. Let her panic. Let her realize that her comfortable life was over. The ATM she'd taken for granted hadn't just closed. It had transformed into a weapon, destroying everything she valued. That he opened his safe and removed one final file evidence he'd been gathering for years, just in case. Bank statements showing Celeste's systematic theft. Surveillance photos proving her affair. Email records detailing her role in Everett's crimes. His phone rang again, Celeste's number. He let it go to voicemail, then played her message. You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. We can work this out, please. I'll do anything. Too late. The time for negotiations was over. The ATM was permanently out of service, and the withdrawal fees would destroy them all. Rowan stood and walked to his window, watching as Celeste's BMW peeled out of the driveway. In the passenger seat, Elora hunched over, probably still crying. Behind them, their perfect world lay in ruins. That he felt no satisfaction, no joy in their pain. Only a cold certainty that justice was being served. They had treated him like a machine, a convenient source of cash to fund their entitled lives. Now they would learn that every machine could be reprogrammed. The ATM they'd mocked was about to teach them the true meaning of withdrawal fees. Rowan sat in his private office downtown, watching the morning news coverage of Everett Maddox's arrest. The businessman's once polished appearance had crumbled, his designer suit wrinkled, his carefully styled hair disheveled as FBI agents led him through a gauntlet of reporters. His phone buzzed. Harlow Montgomery's number. Mr. Calloway, she began, her voice trembling slightly. We need to talk. Do we? Rowan kept his eyes on the television. About what, Harlow? Your role in my wife's affair? Or the money you helped her hide? Please. 5 minutes. In person. There's something you need to know. Rowan considered for a moment. My office. 30 minutes. Don't be late. 28 minutes later, Harlow walked into his office. Her usual confident strut was gone, replaced by nervous energy. Thank you for seeing me, she began. Skip the pleasantries, Rowan cut in. What's so important? Harlow pulled out her phone. You know about Everett and Celeste, but there's more. So much more. She placed the phone on his desk. Everything's here. Every party, every meeting, every secret they thought I'd keep. And why are you sharing this now? Because Celeste thinks she can still win. Harlow's lips curved into a bitter smile. She's planning something. Called an emergency meeting of your whole social circle this morning at the country club. The club that canceled her membership. She convinced them to give her one last breakfast meeting. Said she needed to clear her name. Harlow leaned forward. She's going to try to spin this, make you look like the villain. Paint herself as the victim of your controlling behavior and emotional abuse. Rowan's expression didn't change. Is she? Oh my God, Harlow gasped. Everett Maddox? Her eyes widened with theatrical shock. In your bed? While your husband was building a company to support you? The whispers spread through the country club like wildfire. Manicured hands covered shocked expressions. Designer handbags clutched tighter as the story circulated. And that's not even the worst part, Harlow continued, her voice carrying just enough to reach nearby tables. The FBI is investigating him for fraud. All those charity donations? Money laundering. Patricia Wellington, head of the hospital board, nearly dropped her mimosa. But Celeste handled all our fundraising accounts. Exactly. Harlow's eyes gleamed. Makes you wonder where all that money really went, doesn't it? Celeste burst through the club's doors, stopping short at the wall of cold stares. What's going on? How dare you show your face here? Patricia stood, trembling with rage. After what you've done? What I've done? What are you talking about? Your lover is all over the news, someone called out. The FBI raid? The fraud charges? Those donation records better be spotless, Celeste, Patricia warned. Because I've already called for an audit of every event you ever handled. Celeste's face went white. Patricia, please. Let me explain. Explain what? How you used our charity events to meet your criminal lover. Or how you helped him steal from our community. It's not like that. Rowan is trying to destroy me. Rowan? Harlow's voice cut through the chaos. Rowan worked 80-hour weeks building a legitimate business while you spread your legs for a con man. The room fell silent. Celeste stared at her supposed best friend, betrayal written across her face. ET2, Harlow? Don't quote Shakespeare at me, Harlow snapped. Not after what you've done. Did you think we wouldn't find out? That we believe your lies over cold. Hard evidence. Evidence? Harlow pulled out her phone, showing the room surveillance photos, bank statements, text messages. Each image drew fresh gasps of shock and disgust. You used my house, one woman accused. Told me you needed to borrow it for a charity planning meeting. But it was for him, wasn't it? And my beach house in the Hamptons, another chimed in. All those women's retreats, you were meeting him there. Celeste backed away, her carefully crafted world crumbling around her. This isn't fair. You don't understand. We understand perfectly. Patricia cut in. You're not just an adulteress, Celeste. You're a criminal. And you used our trust, our friendships, our charitable works to facilitate your crimes. Get out, someone demanded. You're not welcome here anymore. But I'm on 6 charity boards. Celeste protested. I run the hospital fundraising committee. Not anymore. Patricia's voice was ice. We're voting you out. Of everything. Consider yourself persona non grata in this community. Celeste turned to Harlow, desperation in her eyes. Please. You're my best friend. Was your best friend, Harlow corrected. Before I knew what you really were. Tears streamed down Celeste's face as she fled the club. Behind her, the whispers grew louder, each person eager to distance themselves from her disgrace. Back in his office, Rowan listened as Harlow recounted the scene. They turned on her completely, she reported with satisfaction. Every charity board, every social committee, she's been voted out of everything. And the audit threats? Patricia's already contacted forensic accountants. If Celeste mishandled any donation money, they'll find it. Rowan nodded slowly. You played your part well, Harlow. I had motivation. She gestured to the folder on his desk. Evidence of her own financial misdeeds. This makes us even, right? You'll destroy those records? That depends. Rowan's voice hardened. Are you hiding anything else from me? No. I swear. I've told you everything. For your sake, I hope that's true. He slid the folder into his desk. Because if I find out you're lying even about the smallest detail, what happened to Celeste will look like a vacation compared to what happens to you." Harlow nodded quickly. "I understand. Thank you, Mr. Calloway." After she left, Rowan pulled up the live security feed from his former home. Celeste sat in her parked car in the driveway, sobbing into her phone that he turned up the audio. "Mom, please," she begged. "I just need somewhere to stay until this blows over. They're going to evict me next week." A pause as she listened to the response. "What do you mean, no? I'm your daughter." Another pause. "Because of the news?" "It's not true." Rowan is twisting everything. Her face crumpled as she listened. "Daddy? Please put him on the phone." "Daddy." She threw the phone against the dashboard. "Fine. I don't need any of you." Rowan switched to another camera feed. Elora sat by the pool, scrolling through her phone with increasing panic. "No. No, no," she muttered as notification after notification appeared. Party invitations rescinded. Social media friends unfollowing her. Messages from college friends asking about the rumors. His phone buzzed with a text from Sullivan. "FBI wants to interview Celeste tomorrow morning. Subpoena just issued." Perfect. The social destruction was complete. Time for phase 2, that the ATM wasn't just closed. It was about to demonstrate the true meaning of compound interest. Elora Calloway stared at her reflection in the boutique's window, her designer purse hanging limply at her side. Inside, Jessica Chun, her former best friend, was trying on graduation dresses with a group of girls who, until yesterday, had been Elora's inner circle. "Your card's declined," the cafe waitress said behind her, holding out the credit card Elora had tried to use for a simple coffee. "Try it again," Elora insisted, her voice cracking. "I've tried 3 times. Do you have another form of payment?" Elora dug through her purse, pulling out card after card. American Express. Declined. Visa. Declined. The emergency card her mother had given her. Declined. "I don't understand," she whispered. "This can't be happening." "Hey!" A sharp voice cut through her panic. The boutique's manager stood in the doorway. "I'm going to have to ask you to move along. You're making our customers uncomfortable." Through the window, Elora saw Jessica and the others watching, their phones raised to capture her humiliation. "Those are my friends," she protested. "Not anymore," the manager replied firmly. "Please leave before I call security." Elora's phone buzzed a social media notification. Her hands shook as she opened it. Jessica had posted the video of her getting turned away from the cafe, adding the caption, "When your bestie's mom helps her criminal boyfriend steal from charities." #karma, #cancel the Calloways. The comments poured in. "OMG, I donated to their hospital fundraiser." Rich kids thinking they're above the law. Guess the bank finally closed Daddy's ATM. Tears blurred her vision as she stumbled toward her car. Except the Mercedes wasn't there anymore. Repossessed yesterday morning, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Miss Calloway?" A man's stern voice. "This is Agent Phillips with the FBI. We need to speak with you about certain trust accounts opened in your name." "I don't know anything about any accounts," she stammered. "Your mother listed you as a beneficiary on several accounts linked to Mr. Maddox's illegal activities. We have a few questions about your involvement." "My involvement? I didn't do anything." "Then you should have no problem coming down to our office to explain that. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Your presence is not optional, Miss Calloway." The line went dead. Elora's legs gave out, and she sank onto a nearby bench. Her phone buzzed again, her college roommate-to-be. "Hey, given everything that's happening, I don't think we should room together next year." "Nothing personal." Another buzz. "The student housing office. Due to non-payment of fees, your housing application has been canceled." She tried calling her mother, but it went straight to voicemail. Again. In desperation, she called her father's office. "Calloway Industries," his secretary answered. "This is Elora. I need to speak to my father." "Please, it's an emergency." A pause. "I'm sorry, Miss Calloway. Mr. Calloway has left strict instructions. You'll need to contact his lawyers." "No, you don't understand. The FBI is calling me. My friends are posting horrible things. I can't even buy coffee. I'll transfer you to legal." "Wait." But the line already clicked over to generic hold music with nowhere else to go. Elora took a cab to her father's office building. The security guard stopped her in the lobby. I'm sorry, Miss Calloway. You've been removed from the approved visitor list. That's ridiculous. I'm his daughter, not according to my instructions. The guard's face remained impassive. Please don't make me call the police. Fine, I'll wait right here. He has to leave eventually. She sat in the lobby for hours, watching employees stream past. Many recognized her. She'd attended enough company events over the years. But now they avoided eye contact, hurrying past like she was invisible. Finally, as the sun began to set, Rowan emerged from the elevator. He walked straight toward the exit, not even glancing in her direction. Daddy, please. Elora jumped up. Just talk to me. Rowan stopped, but didn't turn around. I believe my lawyers made everything clear. The FBI is investigating me. My friends have abandoned me. I can't even get into my dorm room. Fascinating how actions have consequences, isn't it? I didn't do anything wrong. Now Rowan did turn, his eyes cold. Really? Let's review. You lied about charity donations to fund your spring break debauchery. You mocked your father in his own home. You let your mother use your name for fraudulent accounts. Would you like me to continue? That's not fair. I didn't know about Mom's accounts. Ignorance of a crime doesn't excuse participation in it. He checked his watch. You should focus on preparing for your FBI interview. I hear federal prosecutors are particularly interested in those trust accounts. You can't let them arrest me. I'm not letting them do anything. You and your mother created this situation. Now you get to face the consequences. What am I supposed to do? Tears streamed down her face. I have nothing left. Then I suggest you start looking for a job. I hear retail is always hiring. He turned to leave. A job? I'm supposed to be starting college. And I was supposed to have a daughter who respected me, not an entitled parasite who saw me as nothing but an ATM. He nodded to the security guard. Please escort Miss Calloway out. She's no longer welcome in this building. Daddy, wait. But Rowan was already gone. The glass doors swinging shut behind him. Elora's phone buzzed again. Another social media notification. Her cousin had shared an article about Everett Maddox's arrest, adding, "Can't believe my uncle married a gold digger who raised a spoiled brat. Hashtag not my family." The security guard cleared his throat. Miss, you need to leave now. With nowhere else to go, Elora trudged toward the nearest coffee shop. Maybe they were hiring. The thought of serving coffee to her former friends made her stomach turn, but what choice did she have? The manager took one look at her designer clothes and perfectly manicured nails. Any experience? No, but I'm a fast learner. References? I know. Work history? Elora stared at the floor. Nothing yet, right? The manager's voice dripped with disdain. We're looking for someone with experience. Try them all. 3 more cafes. 2 boutiques. A bookstore. Each rejection more humiliating than the last. Finally, she ended up at the mall's food court, staring at a help wanted sign in a fast food window. The manager, barely older than her, looked thrilled at her desperation. We can start you on register tomorrow, he said, sliding over the paperwork. Minimum wage, no benefits, shifts start at 5 a.m. Elora's hand shook as she signed the forms. From luxury cars and 5-star hotels to serving fries before sunrise. The ATM wasn't just closed. It had destroyed her entire world. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from her mother. FBI raided the house. They're seizing everything. Don't come home. Elora stared at her new work schedule, reality finally sinking in. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a punishment she could charm her way out of. This was her life now. The ATM had withdrawn everything: money, status, friends, future. And there would be no more deposits. Everett Maddox sat in a federal holding cell, his Italian suit replaced by an orange jumpsuit. Across the metal table, 2 FBI agents watched him with practiced patience. Let's try this again, Mr. Maddox, Agent Phillips said, opening another file. These transfers from the Calloway accounts, where did that money really go? I've already told you, Everett insisted, his usual smoothness cracking. Celeste invested in my development projects voluntarily. Interesting. Agent Phillips slid forward a document. Because according to these records, those projects don't exist. The properties were never purchased. The contractors were never hired. The permits were never filed. There must be some mistake. The only mistake, the second agent cut in, was thinking you wouldn't get caught. 300 million in investor funds vanished into offshore accounts. Care to explain that? I want my lawyer. Your lawyer's busy being questioned by the SEC. Phillips smiled coldly. Seems he was helping you hide money through shell companies. He's very eager to make a deal. Everett's face went pale. He can't do that. He signed non-disclosure agreements, which become void in criminal investigations. Phillips leaned forward. You're looking at 30 years minimum. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. Unless what? Unless you tell us everything about your accomplices. Starting with Celeste Calloway. Celeste didn't know anything, Everett protested quickly. She just provided information about her husband's business deals. Information you sold to his competitors? That's not. Everett stopped, realizing his mistake too late. Thank you for confirming the corporate espionage charges. Phillips made a note in his file. Now, about those charity accounts Mrs. Calloway helped you access. Meanwhile, across town, Celeste paced in her lawyer's office as he reviewed the mounting evidence against her. This is bad, he said, closing another folder. Very bad. How bad? The FBI has records of you transferring money from charity accounts to Everett shell companies. They have surveillance photos of you meeting with his business partners. They have emails discussing insider information about your husband's company. Those emails were private. They were evidence of criminal conspiracy. The lawyer removed his glasses. You're looking at serious charges, Celeste. Fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. That's ridiculous. I didn't know what Everett was doing with the information. Ignorance isn't a defense when you're actively participating in criminal activities. He sighed heavily. And now Everett's talking to the FBI. He wouldn't dare, Celeste whispered. He already has. Trying to save himself by throwing you under the bus. The lawyer pushed forward a document. The prosecutors are offering a deal. If you cooperate fully, testify against Everett. No. Celeste stood abruptly. I need to talk to Rowan. He can fix this. Mrs. Calloway, your husband is the one who provided most of this evidence to the FBI. What? The surveillance photos? The bank records? The emails? All came from your husband's private investigators. The lawyer gave her a pitying look. He's been building this case for months, maybe years. He wouldn't. But Celeste's voice trailed off as realization dawned. Her phone buzzed a news alert. On the screen, video played of federal agents raiding Maddox Industries offices. The headline scrolled. CEO Everett Maddox accused of massive investment fraud. Prominent socialite wife of tech mogul implicated. Another buzz. A text from her country club friends group chat. Can't believe we let a criminal handle our charity accounts. My husband says the FBI is investigating all her fundraising events. What about our donations? Were they funding her affair? She'd been removed from the chat before she could respond. Celeste's hands shook as she opened her banking app. Account after account showed the same message. Frozen pending federal investigation. What am I supposed to do? She asked her lawyer. They're freezing everything. You should be more worried about the FBI than your bank accounts. He gathered his papers. They'll be here within the hour to question you. Question me? I haven't done anything wrong. The evidence suggests otherwise. He handed her a business card. This is a good criminal defense attorney. Call her immediately. And Celeste? Don't talk to anyone else. Especially not your husband. After he left, Celeste sat alone in the conference room, her perfectly manicured world crumbling around her. Her phone continued buzzing with news alerts. Maddox Industries stock suspended from trading. FBI raids multiple properties in investment fraud case. Charity boards launch emergency audits of fundraising accounts. She tried calling Everett's phone again. Straight to voicemail. His office line disconnected. His email bounced back immediately. In desperation, she drove to Maddox Industries headquarters. Police tape covered the entrance. Federal agents carried boxes of documents to waiting vans. Former employees huddled in groups, many crying as they clutched cardboard boxes of personal belongings. Mrs. Calloway, a firm hand, gripped her arm. Agent Phillips stood behind her. Perfect timing. We need to discuss those charity accounts. I want my lawyer. Smart choice. He nodded to another agent. We'll continue this conversation downtown. And Celeste? Better bring your passport. You won't be traveling anywhere for a while. As they led her to their car, her phone buzzed one final time. A message from Rowan. How does it feel when your safety net disappears? The ATM isn't just closed. It's providing evidence to federal prosecutors. Enjoy explaining those charity transfers to the FBI. Celeste stared at her reflection in the FBI car's window. Her designer outfit, her perfect makeup, her carefully crafted image of success, all meaningless now. She'd thought Rowan was just a convenient source of cash, a walking ATM to fund her luxurious lifestyle that she'd never imagined the ATM could fight back, could destroy everything she'd built, could transform from a cash machine into a weapon of precise, devastating revenge. The car pulled away, carrying her toward a federal building where more agents waited with more questions. Behind her, Everett's corporate empire crumbled. Her social status evaporated. Her carefully hidden crimes exposed. The ATM had withdrawn everything. Money, status, freedom. And there would be no more deposits. Rowan sat in his office, watching multiple news feeds on his wall of screens. Each one told a different part of the same story. Maddox Industries CEO faces additional charges. Charity boards report millions missing from fundraising accounts. Prominent socialite questioned in investment fraud case. Tech mogul's wife implicated in corporate espionage scheme. His phone rang. James Sullivan calling. You'll want to see this, his lawyer said without preamble. Everett Maddox is making a deal. How comprehensive? Full cooperation. He's giving up everything. The corporate espionage, the charity fraud, everyone involved. Sullivan paused, including detailed testimony about Celeste's role. Perfect. Rowan smiled coldly. And the trust accounts? FBI's forensic team found direct links to Maddox's shell companies. They're moving to seize all assets, even the ones in Alora's name, especially those. Using your daughter's identity for fraud accounts? That's not going to play well in court. A knock at his office door interrupted them. I'll call you back, Rowan said. Ending the call, Celeste stood in his doorway, her perfect appearance showing cracks. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, her makeup smeared from crying. Security let you up? Rowan asked mildly. I told them it was about the FBI investigation. She stepped inside, closing the door. We need to talk. No, we don't. Everything goes through the lawyers now. Please, Rowan. Her voice cracked. They're saying I could go to prison. Real prison. Actions have consequences, Celeste. Isn't that what you taught Alora? This isn't a joke. They're freezing everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, even the house. Your lover's arrest tends to have that effect, especially when you're implicated in his crimes. I didn't know what he was doing with the information. Tears streaked her makeup. You have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything. Rowan turned one of his screens toward her. But these bank transfers are very convincing. $2 million moved from our accounts to Everett shell companies. Care to explain that? He said they were investments. In what? Ghost companies? Fake development projects? He pulled up more documents. Or maybe you'd like to explain these emails. The ones where you detail my company's confidential business moves? That's not what those were. Save it for the FBI. He checked his watch. I believe they're executing another search warrant at the house right now. Amazing what they find when someone points them in the right direction. Celeste's eyes widened. It was you. You gave them everything. I protected my interests. Something you should have considered before playing games with a man who builds and destroys companies for a living. What about Alora? She's your daughter. No, she's your daughter. The one you raised to be just like you, entitled, manipulative, seeing men as nothing but walking ATMs. She's being investigated by the FBI. Because of accounts I put in her name. Yes, she is. Rowan's voice hardened. Consider it a lesson in consequences. Something you never taught her. I'll tell them everything, Celeste threatened. About your business practices, your deals. Go ahead. Rowan smiled. My business is clean. Every deal legitimate. Every transaction documented. But please, tell the FBI more about what you know. I'm sure they'd love to hear how you acquired that information. His phone buzzed a text from his head of security. FBI team entering the mansion now. Mrs. Calloway's private office being searched. You should get home, Rowan suggested. I hear the FBI is particularly interested in that hidden safe behind your vanity mirror. Color drained from Celeste's face. How did you? I know everything, Celeste. Every account. Every meeting. Every lie. He turned back to his work. Now get out. The ATM is closed. She fled the office in tears. Through his security feeds, Rowan watched her race to her car. Frantically calling someone on her phone, his own phone rang again. Agent Phillips. Mr. Calloway, the FBI agent said. You'll be interested to know what we found in your wife's safe. Account books, offshore banking documents, detailed records of information sold to your competitors. I trust that helps your case? Immensely. Between this and Maddox's testimony, we're looking at multiple felony charges. Excellent. Keep me updated. After ending the call, Rowan opened his email. New messages poured in from the country club board. Emergency meeting called to discuss charity fund audit findings. From his private investigator, surveillance confirms subject attempting to access frozen accounts through third parties. From Alora's former private school, request for student records from FBI Financial Crimes Unit. His security feed showed Celeste arriving at the mansion, only to find FBI agents boxing up documents from her home office. In the driveway, Alora sat in her now repossessed car, crying as agents explained she couldn't remove any items until they'd been cleared. Another email notification, this one from Everett Maddox's lawyer, marked urgent. Client willing to provide complete testimony regarding Mrs. Calloway's involvement in exchange for consideration at sentencing. Rowan forwarded it to Sullivan with a single word, proceed. His phone buzzed with a text from Harlow. You won't believe what they found in the charity accounts. Celeste has been stealing from children's hospital donations. The news would spread through their social circle within hours. Another nail in Celeste's coffin, another piece of her carefully constructed world crumbling away. One final email caught his eye from the FBI's forensic accounting team. Additional hidden accounts discovered. Funds traced to multiple shell companies. Requesting interview regarding corporate espionage investigation. Perfect. Every piece of his plan falling into place. The women who'd mocked him, who'd seen him as nothing but a cash machine, were watching their world collapse. Alora, learning harsh lessons about consequences as her trust fund accounts were seized as evidence. Celeste, facing federal charges for her role in Everett's crimes. Her social status evaporating as each new revelation emerged. And Everett Maddox, the man who thought he could steal another man's wife and corporate secrets, preparing to testify against them both from his prison cell. The ATM they'd taken for granted hadn't just closed. It had transformed into a weapon of precise, devastating revenge. And the final balance would destroy them all. Rain pounded against the windows of Rowan's corner office as he reviewed the mounting evidence against his wife. Financial records, surveillance photos, intercepted emails, each piece another nail in her legal coffin. His security system pinged an alert. Celeste attempting to enter the building through the cameras. He watched her argue with the lobby security. Gone was her usual polished perfection. Her designer clothes hung wrinkled. Her hair fell in messy waves, and from her unsteady stance, she'd clearly been drinking. Let her up, he told security through the intercom. I want to see this. Minutes later, she stumbled into his office, trying to summon her old allure. Working late? What do you want, Celeste? She swayed toward his desk, her movements a poor imitation of seduction. The scent of expensive wine clung to her. Maybe I miss you. Maybe I've realized what I lost. What you lose. Rowan watched with cold amusement as she tried to perch on his desk. You mean your access to my money? No, baby. She reached for his tie, her hand trembling. I miss us. What we had. He caught her wrist before she could touch him. You're not even good at this, he remarked, his voice dripping with disdain. Pathetic. Please, Rowan. Tears smeared her makeup. They're going to arrest me. The FBI found the offshore accounts. Yes, the accounts where you hid money stolen from children's charities. Tell me, how much did you take from the pediatric cancer ward? I can explain everything. She tried to move closer, stumbling slightly. Just call off your lawyers. Tell the FBI it was all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? He stood, towering over her. Was it a misunderstanding when you helped Everett steal my company's secrets? When you laundered money through hospital fundraisers? When you used our daughter's name for fraud? I did it for us. For our family. No, you did it for yourself. Because you saw me as nothing but an ATM. He walked to the door and opened it. Get out. But the slam of his office door cut off her protests. Through the security feed, he watched her fumble in her purse, pulling out a silver flask. She took a long drink before staggering toward the elevator. His phone buzzed a message from Agent Phillips. Subject attempted to access frozen accounts again. 3 separate banks today. Perfect. Let her panic. Let her realize that her comfortable life was ending. Another buzz his private investigator. Wife met with 3 more lawyers today. All refused to take her case after seeing the evidence. Rowan smiled coldly. No lawyer would risk their reputation defending someone caught stealing from children's charities. Especially not with the mountain of evidence he provided to prosecutors. The elevator camera showed Celeste arguing with her reflection in the mirrored walls. Stupid, she muttered. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Yes, she was stupid to treat him like a cash machine. Stupid to think she could get away with fraud. Stupid to believe the ATM wouldn't fight back. His phone rang. James Sullivan calling. You want to see this? His lawyer said. Forensic accountants found more hidden accounts. The total stolen from charities is up to 30 million. Send me the details. Already did. Also, your wife tried to access your personal accounts this morning. Used a fake ID. Add it to the evidence file. Rowan instructed. Every attempt, every lie, every crime. The lobby camera showed Celeste trying to pay for a taxi with a declined credit card. The driver grew increasingly angry as she attempted card after card. Please, she begged. Just try it again. Lady, those cards are dead, the driver snapped. Pay cash or get out. She fumbled through her designer purse, finally producing a crumpled 20, probably her last bit of cash. The mite Celeste Calloway, reduced to scrounging for taxi fare, his phone lit up with a news alert. Prominent socialite questioned in charity fraud case, Children's Hospital among victims. Attached was a photo of Celeste leaving the FBI office, trying to hide her face from reporters. The article detailed the growing scandal, millions missing from charity accounts, evidence of money laundering, possible criminal charges. Another message popped up, this one from Harlow Montgomery to their social circle. OMG, just heard Celeste stole from the children's cancer ward. No wonder she's drinking at noon. Completely fallen apart. The message spread through their society friends like wildfire. Each person eager to distance themselves from the growing scandal. His security feed showed Celeste still in the lobby, now openly drinking from her flask as she tried to call an Uber. Each attempt met with the same response. All payment methods declined. The ATM they'd taken for granted wasn't just closed. It was systematically destroying their entire world, and this was just the beginning. Rowan reviewed the surveillance photos spread across his desk. Each image told another chapter in Alora's downward spiral. Photo 1. Alora leaving an upscale bar with a man in an expensive suit. Photo 2. The same man a week later, taking her credit cards while she slept. Photo 3. Alora at the police station, trying to file charges, only to learn the cards were all dead anyway. His investigators' notes detailed her pattern. Meet wealthy men, try to recreate her old lifestyle, end up robbed or abandoned when they realized she had no money of her own. His phone buzzed a text from his head of security. Daughter attempting to enter building again. Third time this week. Through the cameras, he watched Alora argue with the lobby guards. Her fast food uniform was wrinkled, grease stains visible on the polyester. Please, she begged. Just call my father. Tell him it's important. Miss, we've been through this, the guard replied. You're not on the approved list. But I'm his daughter. Not according to our instructions. She slumped against the desk. Fine. At least let me use the bathroom to change. I have a date. The guard shook his head. There's a coffee shop down the street. Rowan switched feeds to the exterior camera, watching Alora trudge to her car, a rusted Honda bought with her fast food wages. In the back seat, he glimpsed a garment bag containing a knockoff designer dress. His phone rang. Her latest boyfriend calling. Mr. Calloway, a smooth voice began. I believe I'm dating your daughter. Former daughter, Rowan corrected. What do you want? She tells me you've frozen her accounts. Perhaps we could discuss an arrangement? For the right price, I could help you reconcile. Let me stop you there. Rowan's voice hardened. You're the fourth man this month to try this scam. It won't work. But here's what will happen. You'll attempt to manipulate money from me through Alora. You'll fail. You'll steal whatever she has left. She'll cry. You'll vanish. Save us both time and skip to the end. After hanging up, he opened another report from his investigators. Alora's latest job performance review. Third warning for attitude with customers. Final notice before termination. Right on cue, his phone lit up with her number. Daddy, please. She started without preamble. I'm about to lose another job. These people are impossible. These people are your employers, he replied calmly. Perhaps if you treated them with respect. Respect? They make me clean bathrooms. Do you know what that's like? No. I had wealthy parents who spoiled me and taught me to treat people like ATMs. Oh wait, that was you. I said I was sorry about that. No, you said you were joking. There's a difference. He checked his watch. Shouldn't you be serving French fries right now? I quit. That job was beneath me. Interesting choice of words. Just like the last 3 jobs were beneath you. You don't understand. Brad says I deserve better. Brad? Rowan pulled up his investigator's file. The investment banker who's already married? Or the supposed tech entrepreneur who's actually a con man? You had me investigated? Of course. Someone needs to track your poor life choices. A notification popped up on his screen security footage from Alora's apartment building. Brad emerged from her unit carrying her laptop and jewelry box while she worked her shift at the restaurant. Speaking of Brad, Rowan continued, you might want to check your apartment. He's currently stealing what little you have left. What? How do I have to go? After she hung up, Rowan switched through more security feeds, Alora rushing home to find her apartment ransacked, her tearful call to police Brad using her stolen credit cards at a luxury hotel, with another woman, Alora, being turned away from the hotel. When she tried to confront him, his phone buzzed with a text from her. You were right about Brad. All my jewelry is gone. Even Mom's pearls. He didn't respond. Let her learn. Let her understand what life was like without an ATM to rely on. Another notification: his investigator had located Brad's other victims. 5 women in 3 states, all daughters of wealthy men, all robbed after he gained their trust. Perfect. Each toxic relationship taught Alora another lesson about the real world. Each betrayal stripped away more of her entitled attitude. His security feed showed her returning to the fast food restaurant, begging for her job back. Please, she pleaded with the manager. I'll do anything. Clean bathrooms, mop floors, whatever you need. Weren't we beneath you an hour ago? The manager asked. I was wrong. I was stupid. Just please give me another chance. The manager considered for a moment. Fine, but you start with bathroom duty. And one more attitude problem. You're done. Rowan watched Alora don the paper hat and apron, fighting back tears as she grabbed the mop. The daughter who'd once mocked him, who'd seen him as nothing but a source of cash, was learning the true value of money. His phone lit up with more notifications. Brad arrested for fraud in another state. Got Alora's credit score dropping to new loser, car payment overdue. Another wealthy boyfriend's background check revealing more scams. The ATM they'd taken for granted wasn't just closed. It was teaching them all painful lessons about consequences, and class was still in session. The country club security cameras captured every moment of Celeste's latest meltdown. Rowan watched the footage with cold satisfaction as his former wife staggered into the monthly charity board meeting, clutching her ever-present silver flask. You can't ban me, she shouted at the assembled board members. I built this organization. Patricia Wellington, head of the hospital board, stood firmly. Build it? You stole from it. $8 million meant for sick children. That money was an investment. Celeste swayed on her feet. Ask Everett. Wait, you can't. He's in federal prison. Mrs. Calloway, the club manager, approached cautiously. You need to leave. Your membership was revoked months ago. Revoked? Do you know who I am? She fumbled in her purse, pulling out expired credit cards. I'll pay the dues right now. Those cards are dead, Patricia said coldly. Just like your reputation. The footage showed Celeste lunging for Patricia, missing badly, and sprawling across a table of water glasses. As security led her away, she kept screaming about investments and misunderstandings. That Rowan's phone buzzed. Agent Phillips calling. Your wife tried to access the frozen charity accounts again, the FBI agent reported. Used a fake ID at 3 different banks. How creative. Added to her charges. Already done. She's not helping her case. Judge is considering revoking bail after this latest stunt. Another notification popped up surveillance photos from his investigators. Celeste outside a liquor store at 10 a.m. Celeste arguing with a taxi driver over declined cards. Celeste being turned away from her favorite boutique, his intercom buzzed. Mr. Calloway? Your former mother-in-law is here. Send her in. Eleanor Bradford entered his office, her aristocratic bearing unchanged despite the scandal. This has gone far enough, Rowan. Has it? I thought we were just getting started. Look at what you've done to my daughter. She's drinking herself to death. No, she's facing consequences. There's a difference. He turned his monitor toward her. Would you like to see where your daughter's charity donations really went? The cancer ward equipment that was never purchased? The children who suffered while she funded her affair? She needs help, not prison. She needs both. And she's getting exactly what she deserves. Eleanor's composure cracked. She's been banned from every social club in the city. Her friends won't take her calls. She's sleeping in her car because no hotel will accept her credit cards. How tragic. Almost as tragic as stealing from sick children. This vendetta won't bring back your marriage. This isn't about the marriage. Rowan's voice hardened. This is about justice. Your daughter stole millions from charities. Used her own child for fraud. Helped her lovers steal corporate secrets. Actions have consequences. She's still my daughter. Then you should have raised her better. He checked his watch. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the FBI about more missing charity funds. After Eleanor left, Rowan reviewed more surveillance footage. Celeste attempting to crash another charity gala, claiming her invitation must have been lost. Security removing her as she screamed about conspiracies and revenge. His phone lit up with social media notifications. OMG, just saw Celeste passed out in her car outside the country club. Remember when she ran all those charity boards? Now she can't even pay for coffee. Karma's real stealing from sick kids caught up with her. Perfect. The social destruction was complete. The woman who'd once ruled their social circle was now its favorite scandal that a text came through from Harlow. You won't believe what Celeste did at the hospital board meeting. Complete meltdown. Tried to blame everything on Everett. His security feed showed Celeste outside his building again, arguing with the guards. Her designer clothes were stained, her makeup smeared, a half-empty wine bottle clutched in her manicured hands. Just tell him I need to talk, she slurred. 5 minutes. He has to help me. Ma'am, you're not welcome here, the guard replied firmly. Please leave before we call the police. Police? I am Mrs. Rowan Calloway. No, Rowan murmured to his empty office. You're a criminal who saw me as an ATM. And now you're learning what happens when the ATM fights back. More notifications flooded his phone, FBI updating their case file with her latest bank fraud attempts, her lawyer withdrawing from her case country clubs, adding her to their banned lists, social media documenting her public intoxication. His investigators sent new photos. Celeste trying to pawn her designer bags. Celeste being turned away from her parents' house. Celeste sleeping in her car outside their former mansion. Another text from Agent Phillips. Subject attempted to contact Mr. Maddox in federal prison. He refused her call. Said he's given prosecutors everything about her involvement. Rowan smiled coldly. Even her lover had abandoned her, trading evidence of her crimes for a lighter sentence. The evening news played clips of her latest meltdown. Former socialite Celeste Calloway was removed from another charity event today. Sources say she appeared heavily intoxicated and attempted to justify the missing donations as business investments. Mrs. Calloway faces multiple federal charges related to charity fraud. His phone rang, Celeste calling from an unknown number. The FBI froze my phone, she slurred without preamble. Had to borrow one. Happy now? Ecstatic. Almost as happy as when you mocked me in my own home. I need help, Rowan. They're going to send me to prison. Yes, they are. That's what happens when you steal from children's charities. You did this to me, she screamed. You ruined everything. No, Celeste. You ruined yourself. He ended the call and turned back to his work. The ATM she'd taken for granted wasn't just closed. It was systematically destroying everything she valued. Her status, her freedom, her carefully constructed world of privilege, and the final withdrawal was yet to come. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Rowan's new penthouse as he savored his morning bourbon. The view stretched for miles, his expanding business empire laid out before him like a testament to his triumph. His phone buzzed with breaking news. Former socialite Celeste Calloway sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The article detailed her complete downfall. In a dramatic conclusion to the largest charity fraud case in state history, former socialite Celeste Calloway was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Mrs. Calloway, who appeared intoxicated during sentencing, broke down as the judge detailed her crimes against children's charities. A text from Agent Phillips followed. "Thought you'd want to see this." Attached was security footage from the courtroom. Celeste, barely able to stand, had to be supported by her court-appointed lawyer as the judge read the sentence. "Mrs. Calloway," the judge's voice rang with contempt, "you stole from the most vulnerable members of our society. Children fighting cancer, families struggling with medical bills. Your actions show a level of moral bankruptcy that this court finds particularly repugnant." "I can explain," Celeste slurred, stumbling forward. "It was all Everett's idea." "Mr. Maddox's testimony suggests otherwise," the judge replied. "In fact, the evidence shows you were the one who suggested using children's charities to hide your fraud." The footage showed Celeste collapsing as the full sentence was announced: 25 years in federal prison, complete forfeiture of all assets, restitution of $30 million to affected charities, lifetime ban from serving on charitable organizations. His phone rang. Elora calling from her latest boyfriend's phone. "Daddy," she sobbed. "They're sending Mom to prison. And Thomas took all my money again." "Thomas?" Rowan pulled up his investigator's file. "The gambling addict who's already stolen from 3 other women? That Thomas? How did you never mind? I need help. I lost another job, and the FBI is still investigating those trust accounts. Then I suggest you focus on cooperating with federal investigators instead of falling for obvious con men." "But I have nothing left. No money, no car, no real job." "Welcome to the real world, Elora. The one where ATMs don't solve all your problems." After hanging up, he reviewed more updates from his investigators. Elora working double shifts at a diner after being fired from the fast food place, her new boyfriend emptying her bank account, her car being repossessed, her desperate attempts to borrow money from former friends. Perfect. The entitled daughter who'd mocked him was learning harsh lessons about reality. His security feed showed the scene outside the courthouse. Reporters swarmed as Celeste was led away in handcuffs. "Mrs. Calloway, any comment on your sentence? What about the missing charity money? Did you really steal from children with cancer?" She tried to hide her face, but cameras caught her tears and smeared makeup. The mighty Celeste Calloway, heading to prison in last season's designer clothes. That a notification popped up from the business news. Callaway Industries announces major expansion. CEO's strategic vision drives record growth. Rowan smiled, pouring another bourbon. His company was thriving, expanding into new markets while Everett Maddox's empire crumbled in bankruptcy. His phone lit up with social media updates. "Can't believe Celeste's going to real prison. No country club facility for charity fraud. Karma's amazing. From charity galas to prison jumpsuits. Her daughter's waiting tables at that cheap diner. How the mighty have fallen." The ATM they'd mocked had systematically destroyed their entire world. Celeste facing 25 years in federal prison. Her designer wardrobe replaced with prison uniforms. Her social status destroyed. Her addiction to alcohol making headlines. Elora working menial jobs, falling for con men, learning the hard way about life without daddy's money. Her trust fund accounts seized as evidence of fraud. Everett serving 30 years for corporate espionage and fraud. His business empire bankrupted, his reputation ruined, his stolen millions reclaimed, their social circle shattered, their carefully crafted image exposed as a criminal enterprise, their perfect world replaced with harsh reality. His phone buzzed one final time. Celeste calling from the detention center. "They're taking me to prison tomorrow," she slurred, clearly drunk on smuggled alcohol. "Maximum security because of the charity fraud. You ruined me." "No, Celeste. You ruined yourself." He savored the words. The ATM just kept receipts. Through the window of his luxury penthouse, Rowan watched the sun set over his expanding empire. Everything they'd taken for granted, money, status, freedom was gone. Destroyed by their own greed and arrogance, the ATM they mocked wasn't just closed. It had executed the perfect revenge, teaching them all a brutal lesson about consequences, and the account was permanently out of service.